I've always leaned on my turnover shots and my flip turnovers, and it's not a lot of people that do that anymore. Come from the old school golf, you didn't have that many discs to choose from, so you had to make them all fly a bunch of different ways. That's kind of fun to see. My name is Michael Johansen. My PDJ number is 20,300. Well, I've thrown Frisbee since I was a little kid. Dad would hand us a Frisbee. So I've known about it since I was probably 8, 9. I always liked the shot shaping ability of Frisbees. You'd see people throwing at object golf course at that time, so they'd be throwing at trees, and you're like, ah, what are those guys doing? But I didn't start playing disc golf until after high school in bands and stuff. I grew up classically trained musician, playing clarinet, bass clarinet, stuff like that, learned to play guitar and bass. But when this last band kind of burned out and fell apart in early 2000s, I was like, all right, I'm done, I need a break, let's go find something else to do, and that's when I really just kind of fully jumped into disc golf. Growing up in Charlotte disc golf, I always helped with the club early on. I kept up with Hornet's Nest for probably 10, 12 years in the early 2000s. They had work days, putting in tee pads, like, oh, I'll show up and do all that stuff. Yeah, cool, I have no problem doing it. You need people that are local to your course, that play that course and are invested in it. We just had a good scene locally. Playing against like Stan McDaniel, and by the time I started playing, he was, mid-40s. He had no knees left, barely through, but he'd kick your ass. They've been playing since the 70s and 80s, they just know what they're doing. They know how to play golf. When I started playing tournaments, I thought it was local. Just like, oh, it's something cool that's kind of around the area at first. I didn't really know there was that much. I mean, you could still show up to an event and sign up day of. It was hard to play a lot of events. You had to travel. I don't know how the guys did it early on. To me, it really didn't start growing and really becoming bigger until we started getting stuff with YouTube and that platform. And then when the Pro Tour started, that's really when we bumped to the next level. Nowadays, you can actually make a career out of it, and nowadays it's possible, and it's cool to see. It's amazing to finally see it happen. When I first started, you had 4 or 5 guys that might travel year-round and play all the events. There's probably 40, 50 people that'll tour this year. I mean, that's a lot of growth. I mean, it's crazy. Describing my style in the game and how I would do it would be more of definitely old school shot shaper, because you came as a Frisbee background. The older stuff is still a lot of, I have to make it start with a hyzer and roll late, then turn. It's not something flippy turn or drop a sidearm in there. Shot shaping to me is the ability to control your disc on multiple flight planes during its flight. Controlling your spin rates and your power rates at different things and be able to dial back and throw at 50, 60, 70% of time. I learned from a lot of guys you would never think would be like, you learned from that guy? Really? You can't throw more than 250 feet or out of shadow? No, but he had good angle control. You can learn something from everybody. That's the fun thing about the sport. I started with Discraft, talking to them at the end of 2007, going to 2008, and we talked for a little while, like, sure. I felt more at home there after I got swapped over. It still feels more the culture that I am used to. They've been very supportive of me over the years, even with my weird travel schedule and not really touring and whatnot. I stuck with them through all the thick and thin when everybody left and things happened over the years. Now they're like family, honestly. Welcome to backup land. But it has all the varieties of years of Comets that I liked, that I kept. Still have some early runs from like when I started doing tour stamp discs. Old Cam Todd Challenger. Wall of cranks. Still got my bangers from the ones I kept from the last run I made. You want some of the old original Z bangers? 2008 or 9 maybe? Anybody need a D Reaper? I don't remember what these were. These might have been the Heat actually. Yeah, that's the Heat. Forgot I had those. That's a well-used Comet from 10, 15 years ago. Those were the test machetes, you know? There's old flex nukes and stuff that you don't see much anymore. Old ESP comets and all sorts of stuff. Mostly comets. Thankfully, Schwebby coined the phrase, the purple banger, that hung out in my bag for, God, it had to have been in the bag for 10 years. It spent a year in the pond at Maple Hill, it came back to me, and then spent another 5 or 6 years in my bag before I put it in the pond at Waller Mill, and it is just gone. Really, how I fell in love with the Comet was after becoming sponsored by Discraft, and one of my buddies, Mark Neeren, who's an old Ultimate player, he really liked the Comet. He called me, he's like, "Can you order me some Comets?" "Sure, I'll order some Comets, what the heck?" "Well, sure, I'll take a couple myself," and got a few, went out to Hornet's Nest, and ended up playing a whole round with just Comets, and I kind of giggled my way around the course because I'd forgotten how much I liked it, you know, and how much it really just fits how I throw. And if you throw well and can control it, it will reward you so much, it's hysterical. Worlds 2012, what an interesting year. I got there, pulled in the park, and was like, holy crap, it's full. Like, full. I knew all the courses very well, obviously. I knew I was gonna need 2 hot rounds, probably to win it, 2 really hot rounds. But then I came out in our second round and shoot 17 down at Bradford. And so sleeping on a lead in your hometown, that was definitely interesting. I hadn't been wearing tie-dyed shirts for a while, but I wore a tie-dyed shirt for that one. I was like, all right, for my fans, I'm out here doing stuff that I'm not gonna win, but I'm gonna put on a show.
Show us the way, Michael.
Coming back into that next year, I was gonna try to tour some, do some more touring in 2013. Dad wasn't feeling that great, so he went and found out they thought was just a knotted intestines, and he was supposed to go in to get surgery. Well, I was playing Carolina Clash that year, so he'd been in surgery for 4 or 6 hours. Well, get a text message on like hole 4 or 5. Just come out with stage 4 colon cancer. They gave him 2 months to live. So I pretty much cracked. Dad was the one that, he didn't like what I was doing at first. He didn't understand it. You know, I don't know what the hell you're doing, disc golf, really? But after a while, he would come down and watch me at USDGC. He followed me around, he's like, huh, you're pretty good at this. All these people actually like you too. I was the first local that finished high there. After that, he's like, cool, I appreciate what you do. It's pretty damn good, that's impressive. I don't know how you're gonna make a living out of it, but we'll support you. He was there for 2012 Worlds, that final, so he watched all of that. Dad died at the end of May 2015, just after he had turned 70. Honestly, at Hall of Fame that year, I was in such a daze. So going into that event, I had no expectations. I think we played the Hedrick course first round and then 2 rounds on Jackson. I knew we were flip-flopping all around the last round. It slowly started getting less and less people really in it, and it was kind of more Paul and I. That playoff was surreal. I was just holding on to the little turtle I have that's Dad's in my pocket. Going, all right, one for Dad, hopefully. I think Paul made a mistake first, and then I was able to go for it and get a little closer, a little tap in. All I could do was sit down. It was such an emotional spot. It was a good battle, and it was fun, and it was just for Dad. That's all it was. You know, and a lot of it growing the sport is just being, when you're out there playing, is being approachable. Being nice to someone when they ask you a question during a round or after a round. That could be something that makes them want to come back into the sport. That may teach their kid how to play the sport. So that's a healthy sport, is when you have kids growing up in it and wanting to play it. It's not just a bunch of 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds playing it. That's a dying sport. To me, I'd love to see it just to keep a steady growth. Don't shoot the moon and try something crazy. I'd love to see it not strive to just be exactly what ball golf is. Understand we are a different sport, and learn to embrace the fun of the sport and where it's come from. And I'd like to be able to show that and see that growth aspect of the sport versus just getting into crush it golf. For this year, they're moving me to what's called the Icon team. And to be considered an icon at Discraft, well, that's pretty damn good for me, honestly. You know, random kid from middle of nowhere, North Carolina. I mean, they called me and they're like, you are one of our big pieces that we want to make sure you're taken care of. They respect that I've been there this long and my career's been pretty solid. I became known when everyone left. It was just me and Nate on Discraft, and we stuck around. They've really tooled back up, and they've been incredibly supportive of me. I appreciate that amazingly. And now, after all these years, it's 15 seasons later, still with Discraft, and hopefully we have many more to come. Legacy-wise, I'd like to just be known as a good golfer who was a good competitor, handled himself well, and was a professional about it. I love the sport and I love the game, and I enjoy throwing frisbees.